I've got Kevin Ruch with us today, and I am so excited to have a conversation with him about his many years of experience in the farming and restaurant business. And so let's dive in. Learn how to start a business in your community with Launch Local podcast, full of know-how and inspiration from successful small business owners, including your host, Amber Artemis. Today I have Kevin Ruch. He is one of the co-owners of Union Public House, which is a really great restaurant, actually called the best dive bar in Jim Thorpe. Is that
The
right?
the only dive bar in Jim
The
Thorpe.
only dive bar, hence it's the best. And he's been a farmer for many years. How many years, Kev?
Yeah, I've been farming for 26 years, and my wife and I have had the 14-acre farm for 20 years now.
That's great. And your five-star dive bar is a farm-to-table restaurant?
I'd say somewhat, yeah. We still have bar food and pub fare and whatnot, but we try and use all the vegetables from the farm at the restaurant.
That's great. Are you an organic farm?
Not certified organic, but we've always operated as an organic farm. We've never used any pesticides. We try and build the soil through natural means using mushroom soil, mushroom compost, and other organic fertilizers.
Yeah, I feel like that's a story in itself. Full disclosure, I've known Kevin for many years, and I remember you guys made the conscious decision not to get organically certified, right?
Yeah, only because we were too small really to do it. It doesn't make sense if your sales aren't going to be, $100,000 a year. You're not trying to distribute to other people and stuff. It doesn't make sense to get certified organic. So we knew we were just going to stay a small farm. I think our sales, like the most we ever had annually, were maybe $80,000. And so, yeah, it didn't make sense for us to pay the money to get certified organic.
I would like today to focus mainly on your restaurant businesses.
Cool.
Um, I do want to just sort of put a bow on the scope of your farming business. It seems like there was a point where you thought you were going to be a farm that sold directly to consumers, but then you've decided to keep the farm as an operation that fuels your restaurant business. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, when we first started the farm, we did have a CSA and we were going to multiple farmers markets every week and not really making very much money doing that, but it was a great way to get our name out into the community. A few years later, everybody knew us as 14 Acre Farm. They already knew that I was a chef and our partner Albert, who was also a chef. They started following our restaurant endeavors at that point. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where we built a community of consumers and friends that followed us along in our journey.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a really interesting theme to continue to explore about building a community. I think that's something that you're really good at. We in our own business recently participated in a farmers market, and that was one of the main reasons we wanted to do it, to connect with others in the community, meet people, talk to them and get to know them, and really building like fans, people who are invested in what you're doing and want to see you succeed and will show up later.
Yeah, that's definitely been our business model, not necessarily on purpose, but that's how it started working out, and that's how it's continued ever since.
It's really cool.
We went through a phase of, I don't know, 10 years where we did wedding catering also, and we built a lot of fans through that too. People found the farm through that and found our restaurants through that and continue to come back year after year.
Okay, so I kind of want to get a timeline going here, like an arc to present day 2024. Since you mentioned you've been farming for roughly 25 years,
Yeah.
let's just start around then. Did you actually start a farmer's market or two as well?
I started farming originally at the Glass Burn Inn down in Fogelsville. I was living in Texas when my wife got pregnant, and we decided to move back to Pennsylvania, and I got a job offer to be the vegetable farmer at the Glass Burn. And so that would have been 1999 when I started doing that. And I did that for 1 year and really got a connection with the chefs there, and figuring out what they needed to cook with and stuff like that, and what varieties they were looking for. I feel like it was kind of, we were kind of at the forefront of the farm to table thing at that point, 1999. Yeah, so after the glass burn around 2001, my friend Seth and I started a farm in Emmaus at our friend's property. We started another business called Creative Organic Landscapes, growing perennials, annuals, and vegetables. At the same time, I hooked up with a lady named Joyce Marin in Emmaus, and we started the Emmaus Farmers Market. That was an outlet for selling our vegetables and selling our perennials, and also meeting customers for our landscaping business. And so that was kind of the next thing that happened.
So the glass burn was, like you said, sort of a pioneer farm to table, high end restaurant. What did you do there? You said you were in charge of their farm?
I was in charge of the vegetable farm. And then I'd work with the chef to decide what vegetables he wanted me to grow and do all the harvesting and bring them down for him.
When did you cross into the kitchen?
I was doing the kitchen well before that. So I already had a knowledge of farm to table cooking at that point and a knowledge of baking. I started cooking when I was 16. So that would have been like 1992.
And so you're entirely self taught?
Entirely self taught. Yeah,
Okay.
except maybe not with the bread baking. Albert Sabatini definitely gave me a lot of guidance with that. With everything else, I'd say everything else came from book learning. Like with the organic farming and stuff, a lot of it was through Bill Mollison, his permaculture book, and the Four Seasons gardening and stuff like that, just reading books. And then same thing with cooking. We would look at all these old French cookbooks and get ideas from that, look up 4 recipes for crepes, and then decide what we were going to do to make crepes that day. Same thing with almost every dish that we started making when we first started cooking, myself and my friend Gable, when we were like 18, 19 years old. We'd come up with recipes. And
And that was at the glass burn?
no, that was at Lee Gribben's Fine Gourmet. That was before the glass burn. Yep.
Okay. Trying to paint a timeline of your experiences that have culminated in you running, owning and running your own successful restaurant. You started out self-taught, just an enthusiasm for organic gardening and cooking, and read a lot of books.
Pretty
Got a
much.
job, got a job at a place that had a reputation for both organic gardening, farming, and
Yeah.
fine dining.
Yeah.
But
And
you worked in their kitchen as well as their garden?
not at that time. At later dates, like years after, I did work there in their kitchen. Before the glass burn, I worked at Lee Gribben's Fine Gourmet, and me and my friend Jason Gable developed a menu there, a dinner menu, and there was no dinner service before we started working there. And I actually had like a garden back there, a culinary garden, and we came up with all kinds of crazy ideas at that time. And both of us, myself and Jason Gable, have gone on to culinary careers after that.
I have to ask, like, who was in charge there that gave you this much license? Because that sounds pretty
That was that was
amazing.
that was Lee Gribben, yeah. But yeah, I think I was 19 years old and Gable was maybe 20 years old when he made us head chefs there, like co-chefs. And we're like, right, let's do this. We kind of persuaded him into it, but yeah. It was a huge catering operation. The dinner thing was just extra for him. We were already doing so much catering, like ridiculous amounts. So we talked him into doing dinner service 3 nights a week so
And he
that
let
we
you
could
guys run it.
experiment and do whatever we wanted.
Wow, that's really cool. Probably helped you build a lot of confidence.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, both of us. Yeah.
Do you have any recollections of what was the biggest mistake you guys made? Or
There,
just biggest lessons you learned?
I don't know. We didn't know much about equipment at that point, like kitchen design and making the kitchen into what we needed to service our needs. That was probably the worst part of that experience, working with bare bones equipment, stretching ourselves thin, trying to get everything done. Or like frying things in pans and stuff, and
When you should have had a deep fryer or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
So, I feel that sometimes you learn, what you need along the way.
I think I've gotten a lot better at kitchen design since then. I've learned to map my menu around what the kitchen has in it, or vice versa. If I'm building a menu and then I need to build a kitchen, I know what I need to put in the kitchen at that point, you know, equipment wise.
That's an interesting thought that you could go in either direction. Like build your menu around the kitchen you inherit or build the kitchen to suit the menu you want to
Yeah.
serve.
Yep. Yep.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Delicious elderberry wine, fresh and healthy elderberry syrup, crisp ciders, all available 7 days a week at Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company, 76 Broadway in Jim Thorpe, specializing in regional folk wines and ciders just like your grandparents used to make. Elderberry, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, apple. Now serving lunch too. That's Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company, 76 Broadway in Jim Thorpe. Open every day 11 till 5. Also available online at wildelder.com.
Cool. Getting back on track. Leek ribbons, and you were at the glass burn.
And
You and Seth started a perennial landscaping and garden farming business.
yeah, which is
Um,
still operational. Seth still operates that as a landscaping company. We got into hardscaping, a lot of stonemasonry also, and he still does a lot of that stuff now. 25 years later, he's still working in that business under the same name.
and that's why he has such an unusually good tan around February, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I met you in like 2004 or so, and you were already at the 14-acre farm in Summit Hill with Albert
Yep.
Sabatini. How did you come to be there? You were co-owner of that farm at that point, right? You
Yep.
bought into, and we all know it's 14 acres based on the name. So how did that opportunity come about?
I think Sarah, my wife, had come to visit here with our friend Jill, who owned a coffee shop on Race Street, and came back to our house later on and said, "We have to move to Jim Thorpe." And I was not having it. I was like, "No, we're not moving to Jim Thorpe. Then I have to drive to work. I have a business in Allentown. I have to drive to work every day to Allentown and back. That doesn't make sense at all." She kind of harped on it a little bit, and I was like, "All right, well, if we could find something to do in Jim Thorpe, then I'd be willing to do it." I think Jill then introduced us to Albert, who was the chef at the Black Bread at the time. Albert invited us up for dinner and told us about this farm across the street that was for sale. He didn't want anyone else to buy it and develop it. He didn't want houses across the street from his beautiful bed and breakfast. We talked about it a little bit, and it didn't take very long, maybe like a month or two. We decided that we were going to jump on that opportunity and buy these 14 acres and start a farm there. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how it came about. I'd say it was maybe like 4 months from the time we first started talking until we actually bought the farm.
And now it was zoned like R1 probably, but it was unimproved, right? You guys put that pole building up, right?
No, the pole building was already there.
It was a working farm already.
Yeah, yeah. They just rented the land to someone who grew corn or soybean there every year.
Okay, interesting. So you became farmers and you still had this landscaping business down in Allentown, and you were still working anywhere else because you were a hustler.
I think that first winter, I got a job cooking at a country club, just cooking, and then after that first year, so I think we moved to the farm or got the farm in March. By November, I met Barney Sheridan, who was opening a restaurant in Lansford, Kelly's Irish Pub, and wanted help opening that. And so that would have been the end of 2004. And so me and Barney started building out that restaurant. And I think we were open by the end of January 2005.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember you seasonally working, like getting a job for the winter kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that's what I would tell everybody. Like, I'll work from Thanksgiving until like March 15th, and then I'm done. And bosses were always incredulous. Like, what do you mean you're done on March 15th? Like, that's it. I have to be done on March 15th.
Gotta go start the seeds, right?
Yeah, most of them were already started, but I actually had to start planting stuff outside at that point. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So there was a series of opportunities that came and went between there and what do you think? Like 2000, like I want to get us to your cafe in Lehighton, right?
Mhm.
That was your first brick and mortar place that was your own, right?
Yeah. So
And then end up at Union Public House.
the reason we started the cafe in Lehighton was we had a bakery right across the street from 14 Acre Farm that started around, I guess that would have been around the same time as Kelly's Irish Pub, like 2005. We started a bakery there. And at first, I was making bread and I was delivering 3 or 4 days a week to local stores and a couple local restaurants. That lasted a few years. Then it was only going to farmers markets and selling bread and maybe like a couple other local stores that were buying it. And I forget what year Albert sold the house, but at that point we had to move the bakery. I want to say it was 2010, 2011. And so I started looking for a place that I could move all our equipment to. We had pizza ovens and mixers and like all kinds of equipment. So we located that spot in Lehighton on First Street and spent the whole winter rehabilitating that space and moving our equipment and getting it ready. And then I think we opened sometime in like the end of March, beginning of April uh, that year, 2011, maybe. That was our production space for bread and also for our catering operation, which at that point had turned into something, that we were making a lot of money on and catering 30, 35 weddings a year plus other events. So we needed a spot to operate out of.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of your business there was that, again, it was a community building enterprise, but mainly the profit motive was to support your catering business.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually made money catering and then we employed like 5 people in the store, like restaurant itself, that, they all made a decent living. And it was really great to just have everybody come by the shop all the time. It was a spot where we could sell plants and sell produce and an excuse to make bread. And yeah, and it all.
Yeah, and so just thinking about staffing, where the staff in the eatery, they were also your catering staff?
Few of them, not all of them. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Like 2 of them were only there at the eatery, and then everybody else kind of passed through. The catering staff was mostly just people like weekend warriors, people that wanted to show up and make $250 on a Saturday or something.
Well, and I guess I'm wondering, like, if you needed to help support or give hours to keep staff engaged for the catering operation, like, for instance, were you doing all of the prep work for the catering yourself? Or were some of these people that were working in the eatery helping with
Oh
prep
yeah,
work for the catering?
yeah, they were definitely helping with the prep work and stuff. And at the same time, shortly after that, we got the Union Public House. So that was 2015, and
And I remember this, like, so this was like the smokiest bar in Jim Thorpe.
yes, yeah, and dingiest and just ugliest from outside to inside. Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
Like, when
And
people hear about Jim Thorpe, they think Victorian charm,
yeah,
and this image, like, this could not have been farther from it.
no wood paneled walls, and then yeah, the kitchen floor was made of cardboard. It was great, but
Wow.
so we weren't using that kitchen at the Union Public House to do any prep work. We were prepping everything at the spot in Lehighton at the 14 Acre Farm Eatery and bringing everything to the Union Public House when we first started there because we were not going to use that kitchen to cook in.
So you leased the place when you first started, right?
Yep. Yep.
And, like, what you remodeled then the building before you owned it?
Just that floor itself. We put new flooring in and new ceiling, new flooring, new lighting. And then we bought it. At that point, we put in a new kitchen and new bar top and stuff like that.
Okay, so you didn't do, like, serious improvements until you were owners of the building.
We did spend a lot of money on it, but it wasn't like a total overhaul or anything like that.
And there's apartments above it? Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So were there tenants there when you first occupied it?
Yes, the one tenant is still the same. I think she's been there for 18 years now.
Cool. So you inherited another business.
Yes, yeah, yeah. My wife said she'd never be a landlord again, but she is a landlord
Yeah.
again.
How's it working out for you?
It's great. There was a little leak yesterday. I had to clean up a gallon or two of water downstairs and figure out the sink upstairs. But yeah, I don't mind those things.
And you now live next door.
Yes, which is wonderful. We can just walk to work and stumble home from work. It's great.
I feel like I have to ask about cash flow for all of these things. I know your background. You don't come from money. You had no personal loans given to you by family members. You kind of did this all yourself, and it took a while, right?
Definitely.
But
I mean, we've always been broke, but we have so much stuff. As soon as we get a few dollars, we spend it on something else, and that's
well,
really
I want to dig into that because I think you once told me if you're spending money on something that's going to make you money, it's kind of a no-brainer.
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
So you're not buying frivolous things. It's not like you own like speedboats and, things like that.
no. But if I need a piece of equipment that's going to help the business, a lot of times you can actually with some things are even easier. Like if you're putting a new heating system in, you can say, this is obviously going to save me $8,000 over 3 years. So I can afford to spend $10,000 on this thing right now. I don't know. Some things are pretty obvious investments to me like that, even if it costs you in the short run.
Right. Spending in a way that it's going to save you money, it's going to save you time, or it's
And
going to make you money.
and it increases the value of the business. If somebody else had to step in, they'd be like, everything's already done. We can just walk in here and work. Most situations that I've been in where I started businesses, we had to go in and rehab everything, like ultimately, you know. And so
Well, and for those who want to start a business and are concerned about access to capital, I think it's important to like sort of suss out how you have come up with funds for these things along the way. Like when you guys bought into the farm, for instance, like you had to actually get a loan for that, right?
the guy who sold us the farm ended up letting me borrow $3,000 from him for the first year. So a year after we bought the farm, I owed him 3 grand as the initial down payment, but he was willing to defer that, which was nice. I don't know. I'm never shy about asking people about stuff like that either. If it makes my life easier and it makes the deal get done, then hopefully it's a win-win for everybody.
Wait, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So when you bought the farm, did you have to get a loan?
I did
Like
not have.
no
Well,
commercial loan
yeah, we did get a
or
loan
farm
for the
loan?
farm, but then in addition to that, I also had Donnie Miller, who sold us the farm, defer a $3,000
3,000.
payment so that we didn't have to come up with additional money down at that point. But yeah, we did
Okay.
have a loan. We still have a loan for the farm because it makes sense.
Is it an ag loan?
Yeah, and I think it's
Which
2.5%, and so I'll never pay that off.
right. Yeah, if it's like a 3% loan or so,
I'll
you
keep
just
that forever.
just pay the minimum. It's
And
fine because having the cash in hand that you would otherwise put on that is
three
more
percent,
valuable.
3% is what inflation's been lately.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have a loan like that ourselves and our mortgage actually, thankfully. Point. So, and other friends in business have told us the same thing.
Yeah,
Uh, so, and then something else that happened, I know when you moved next door to your current business and purchased this old mansion basically that needed to be refurbished, you did some things there that, I mean, it's hard to recommend to others, but because it involves selling your home and moving in to the project, which I was worried for you guys a little bit, but I was like, you should get an air filter because you moved into this kind
construction
of
zone.
construction zone, but like part of the building had like pigeons living in it. You lovingly called it Pigeon Manor. And it had one habitable space. And so you sold your home at the opportune time. And that's the part that I have a hard time recommending to people. Like, because sometimes, you can go underwater, but if you're careful, you have to pay to live somewhere. You may as well own the home. And you have done that since I've known you.
Mhm.
Um, for the average person, I feel like buying a home is an accessible way to build some capital, some wealth of some sort, even though it's tied up in your home and you have to sell it at the right time in order to unlock that. And so you guys did that. You had a starter home, sold that, got a great deal on a second home, and then that appreciated in value. And you sold your home, and you were able to take those funds to Pigeon Manor, right, and lived there while you remodeled it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we did. The remodeling loan ended up turning into our mortgage, which is what we still owe on it. But we bought the actual place for cash initially and then got a remodeling loan to do all the work on it, which is still not done and will never be done. But it does actually bring in money at this point, enough to pay for itself and for us to live there for free. So that's something.
Yeah, it's a really interesting investment because it's a place for you guys to land and and live, and you've got this commercial space with good tenants, that are going to continue to be there, and then you've got
That's
uh,
next door to
rent
our other building.
rentals, and it's right next door, so that when there's a leak, you can go fix it.
Yeah, I feel like us buying that building like really brought up property values and just brought up the neighborhood. It just made sense to do that. If that building was falling over, like our business next door wouldn't maybe be doing as well as it is or be worth as much as it could be 5 years from now or something. So I think it just made sense as an investment and just I always need a project. And so it was a fun project to sink our teeth into. Sarah, my wife, also loves projects, and so it's something we get to work on together. We got to bring in a lot of other contractors and friends to work with us, and so it's been, I'd say, a great experience altogether.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's so inspirational for the community. So there's that aspect again, like, it's a community building. It's a community building project. I see people, and actually, I think Sarah told me she overhears people talking about the project all the time,
Yeah,
like outside the window.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We
And yeah, it's inspirational. Everybody likes to see something brought back to life, and you guys have done it with some eye for authentic touches, like copper details and slate roof, and
yeah.
the colors are great. It's a lovely addition to the neighborhood, which it used to be literally looked like a hurricane had hit it before. Like it had a tarp on part of the building. I
I think
cannot overstate this enough. It was a wreck.
yeah.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Live from downtown Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. Wine, Cider, and Song brought to you by Wild Elder Wine and Cider Company.
Old Wild Elder came down from the mountain, said the secret of youth ain't found in no fountain. If you want to feel spry, we past the age of 99. You gotta have a daily chug of Wild Elderberry wine. You gotta drink it dry. Elderberry wine. You gotta drink it dry. Wild Elderberry wine. You gotta drink it dry. Elderberry wine. And it'll probably cure what ails you.
So just a couple more things I want to hit on. Like, well, first of all, I think what I know of Union Public House, you are not the sole owner, right? You're one of many partners. So
Yes.
can you talk to me about how you structured your business?
So when John and I first bought the place, we wanted to bring Mark, who is a longtime bartender, into the business right away. We offered him 10% of the business initially, just because we didn't want to lose him. He was kind of the face of the business already, and he knows everybody in the community. John and I, when we came into Jim Thorpe, didn't necessarily know everyone. We knew some people, but not like Mark knows them. Mark is like either he's related to him or he went to high school with them or knows literally everybody that walks in the door. And so we didn't want to lose him. That was the initial thing. Since then, we've had employees that have been there a long time who do a great job and offered each of them 5% of the business for a fee, of course. They had to pay for it, but they get their money back every month as a share of the profits. Maybe it took a year for them to pay themselves back. Now they're really vested in the business, and I don't see them leaving anytime soon. So that was the goal behind that. If I started another business, I would do it the same way. If I had the right people on board, I would offer them an initial stake in the business right away, because you want to keep these people and you want them to be vested and care as much as you do about what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's something that I hear time and again, people complaining about nobody wants to work, you can't get good help. And I never hear you say that.
No.
Uh, as an employer, I've seen you, really care about people and, put yourself in their shoes because you have been.
Yeah.
Um, how did that come about? How did you develop that philosophy? Did you have any bad experiences that taught you that's not how you treat people? Or was there a mentor that inspired you here? Where did this come from?
I don't know about that. I think it's always been ingrained in me that if I'm going to hire somebody to do any job, I want to be able to do it as well or better than they can. I'm not hiring somebody, you know, if I can't train them and if I can't teach them something, you know. So I think that's kind of where it comes from. I envision everyone that works for me hopefully going on to start their own business. That's what I would love to see. And and then I want to ingrain in them, like, I'm the first person to work every day. I'm the last person to leave every day. And if there's any problems at all, I can teach you how to fix them, And that's kind of my goal as a manager and an employer.
Lead by example, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'd love, there's some people that you can kind of pick out their abilities and say, this person is going to be a leader one day. We've had people that worked for us in the past that have gone on to start their own businesses. And I love that. And I would like that for everyone.
That's great. It's like a sort of an apprenticeship model almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for the people that don't necessarily want that, we have the ownership model too, where you can work for us forever if you want and be part of it and own part of it.
That's awesome. You could do anything differently. What would you do different in your experience? Think about like what was the hardest lessons, that you had to learn. Impart some wisdom to us, Kevin, from your personal experience.
I don't know. I mean, doing things differently, I don't think is part of my DNA, but
That would
but I would say it's always okay to walk away from something if you're getting into some kind of business and you're just really not seeing this partnership working out, this business model working out, or your relationship with your landlord or your bank. It's okay to walk away from stuff like that and just start again. Um, I think that's a fine thing to do. Myself, I always feel like I have a lot of ideas on the back burner all the time, where if an opportunity does arise, I already have the ideas. I have the template to set something up, like whether it's a tea shop or cafe or restaurant, a music studio or something else. I have these ideas already evolving in my head. A lot of them already written down. I try to be prepared for situations like that also. Opportunities.
Yeah, and that kind of flows into what I think is my last question for you, which is what's your plans for the future? And do your plans for the future involve an exit strategy of some sort?
My plans for the future are to travel and to see more of the world, but I don't think I'll ever stop working. I'd like to figure out a way to amalgamate those things to make my life in a way where I can still own businesses and work in businesses and also travel and inspire people and form communities in other places while still keeping what we have here. I don't know if it's necessarily an exit strategy as much as it is like just stepping back, but still being available. I don't necessarily want to be the guy that has to be there every day at 6:30 in the morning forever, but I'd still like to be the guy that can be there to help.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, right? For probably most small business owners is to be able to step back, to have these systems and relationships in place that allow you a little bit more flexibility with your time.
Yep. So that is the goal in the next couple of years. Or who knows,
Well,
maybe we'll do something crazy and start a whole new business.
yeah, it's given me. It wouldn't surprise me based based on your experience. So I look forward to seeing whatever you come up with next. And thank you so much for everything you've done for our community. I think to help make it a more vibrant place. I see small businesses as the backbone of the community, and you've created so many great opportunities for gathering and learning and growing and just most importantly eating good food. So thanks, Kev.
Thank you, Amber.
All right, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Launch Local is an original podcast produced and recorded by Amber Artemis at Leisure Lane Studio in Jim Thorpe, PA. Show music is by Joshua Finsel. This is a video podcast available for viewing on YouTube or at the show website, launchlocal.biz, where you can subscribe to the show newsletter and find helpful tools like the Ready to Launch quiz. Take the quiz at launchlocal.biz to find out how I can help you launch your own local business.